Well, the Oasis had some relief now, and for a short time they could breathe easier. But they still had to get to the hospital to immunize the children and newcomers to the Oasis.
Val is down at the boat. He's getting his large pole ready, which he uses as a punt. He has basic gear. He's not going with a lot. The hospital's a bit of a journey, but it's not excessively far. And he has a chicken. It's an old chicken, but it is a chicken. He doesn't look particularly happy about this state of affairs, but he has a plan.
Sybil has sworn both Nicole and Medley and made them solemnly vow that they will not let her dog out to run around until this giant chimera has been dealt with. And after receiving assurances on this front, she will also head down to the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt is exiting the building with a satchel filled with rubbing alcohol and vodka. He's talking to someone unseen, hidden behind the doorway. I understand your concerns. We're leaving right now. We'll be back, hopefully with shots. This crisis is at the top of our priorities. Kurt will shake his head and make his way down to the boat.
Pleasant conversation?
With Willie.
Uh-huh.
Surprisingly,
Shall
he
I-
wasn't telling me to give it all back.
Well, now that is
Yes.
shocking.
Surprisingly, he said, take what you need.
You don't suppose he's infected, do you?
I'm starting to be a little concerned.
Must be feverish.
Val hops off the boat. So, which of you two feel confident enough to steer?
How does one steer this? That may answer your question.
And he points at the wheel. That you turn, which turns the rudder, which will affect the direction of the boat.
Sybil will look at Kurt. What do you think?
Did you have a license?
For a boat?
Or a car, either.
No.
Well, I did. For a car, that is, not a boat.
After you, then.
Kurt will hop on.
And Val unties the boat and jumps onto the rear of it. He takes his punt.
And Sybil will get aboard.
And he will point in between two buildings. He's like, we're going to head in between there initially. On the far side, it's about 500 meters out, there was a low pillar that sticks about a foot out of the water. We're going to tie the chicken there. We're not going to use the engine. We are going to try to make as little noise as possible until we get away. If I'm correct, I think we're dealing with a gator.
So the pilot is going to need to make a check to get to the pillar in the middle of the river. And given the recent rains and debris that's floating in the water, and the risk of drawing the ire of the Chimera, and navigating without a motorboat. The difficulty, or the opposition level, should I say, will be 5.
Glad I'm not steering.
So it is hard, but it's not challenging.
And what attribute do you think that would go with? I
Reaction.
can see reaction.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say reaction, maybe willpower, but I don't know. So you said Kurt's reaction is 2.
Yep.
Okay, so you're working with 2 base success. And what kind of outcome are you going for?
I think the best is just to roll with a cost.
Try just
Yep,
try and
just
succeed with the cause. Okay, so you need 3 additional successes. Like I said, I'm glad I'm not steering.
So you're going to roll 3 dice
Yep.
to try and get those extra successes. So you can roll more if you want,
Okay.
but you run the risk of rolling a 1, which means a failure.
All right. 3.
Oh,
How'd you do? How'd you do?
Oh,
Oh no.
there's a 1.
There is. Ah.
So that
Oh
is a
dear.
failure.
Mm-hmm.
You are finding that the current is just too strong. And as soon as you get beyond the 2 buildings, which provided some protection against the current of the river, you get out into the open water near the middle of the where the river probably once was at some point in the past. The current gets a lot stronger, and the bottom slightly deeper, so it's a little bit more difficult to punt your way around, and you are being carried well beyond the pillar towards the wall that has been built by the Chimera beavers.
Val points and says, try to get the bow in line with the current. And once you've got control, steer to the left. Once we're away a bit, I'll tell you. Start the engine. And he goes back to the rear of the boat. And he turns and looks at Sybil, and he says, don't look.
You know, when someone says that, it really makes you want. Fine. Fine.
And he takes the chicken and places it in the water as it starts to swim away. Val had noticed the eyes breaking the surface every now and again. It had been showing some interest in the boat. We had not ended up where Val had intended. He had 2 options of directions to go, and he would have preferred to have taken the slightly longer route, but it would have been in between buildings. He did not want to be in the open water as much. He is going to invoke away from the eyes of the predator.
Mm-hmm.
And he can see the eyes of the gator and its slightly deformed shape that it has suffered. And he knows it's watching them. But he also knows at this point it's trying to decide which is less trouble. And finally, it drops below the water And Val can never truly be sure. But there is a large splash, and the bulk of the gator as it rolls, and then the water is still, and the chicken is gone. Start the engine. Let's get out of here. So Val spent away from the eyes of the predator, cost me 1 soma to do, and it allows me to not be attacked or be the focus of attention of a chimera or beast. And as this was a chimera alligator, I think I wanted to spend that.
A useful gift to have at this moment, I
I
believe.
agree.
The entrance to the hospital was only made possible via an old delivery ramp at the rear of the building, with the first floor having succumbed to flooding a long time ago. The Oasis people had a working relationship with the hospital, albeit a strange one. The flock of the hospital was a strong community of highly religious folk who came up with their own doctrine based on the new life and the people's existence and harmony with panacea. The religion helped appease conflict within the settlement of the hospital, as anyone who stepped out of line could be banished to the Chimera Wall as punishment. This was done on occasion to appease the chimera that lived there, or so the rumors did mention. The boat rests against the edge of the ramp as the engine comes to a stop. A roller door opens, chains rattling as one figure pulls down on them, drawing the roller door open, revealing a garage that is filled with a variety of equipment, odds and ends, boxes, crates of God only knows what, and even a car, as well as 2 people covered in biohazard suits. One of them waves, the other holds the chain of the door.
So have you two been here before? Because I have not.
Many times.
And how do you find the people here?
I cannot say I agree with their religion, but they're good people. They help us, we help them.
Hmm. All right.
Hail, Oasis people. We hear you're having problems.
News travels fast.
Apparently.
The regulators don't only just visit the Oasis people, they also drop in here from time to time. And given that they were in the neighborhood, if you have what we need, I think we could offer a trade.
Good to know.
You might forgive us for not coming down to greet you, but we don't wish to have your contagion spread if indeed you are infected.
We do not want that either. And Val will step back to the far side of the boat to allow the 2 people that he knows are much better communicators than he is to
Ah,
step forward.
Mare, the bringer of life and our future. What can we do for you today? Let's bargain.
Kurt will hold out his messenger bag. We were told that you could use some alcohol. Potent ones? Inside, we have an assortment of vodka, whiskey, and rubbing alcohol.
An assortment or from the same cask?
Multiple bottles.
Ah, indeed. Well, come, Mare. Any notions? lay your wares out before me, and we shall determine how much we can trade. So, while you're doing that, how is the panacea business going, my dear fellow? Still reveling in its sheer simplicity and form?
Kurt will sigh. You know I do not wish to discuss this. I've made my mistakes and I will pay for them.
Yes, but what you would call a mistake, we call humanity's saving grace. It is, after all, changing the way humanity lives on this wonderful rock of ours.
Please do forgive us. Well, I'm sure normally it would be perfectly agreeable to have a discussion with you. We do have children in our community who we are anxious to return to and ensure the safety of.
You have given them the TB test, no?
And Sybil turns to look at the other two because she doesn't know.
The regulators can only afford to give us a handful. We don't have enough to check all the children. The ones we checked are clear now, but that doesn't mean it can't change.
And ideally, we would like to work out some way to immunize the children and any newcomers to our community.
And he's watching Kurt unpack all of the alcohol filled bottles. And behind the biohazard mask, you can see his eyes frown slightly. You don't certainly need to inoculate everyone in the Oasis, surely. Just the children?
Well, not everyone, no. Some of us are already immunized. The children would certainly be the priority.
Ah, yes, children. The children, they are our future. We have to make sure that we look after them and, in turn, teach them how they can live with the new world.
Quite.
Or you could send them over here where they could live in harmony and we could teach them all they need to know.
I believe their parents may have some objections to that proposal.
So, Kurt, my friend, my creator of the new world, you are almost a god, having created this world in a number of days that you have by the mere signage of one's signature on a piece of paper so small, so insignificant, you have changed the world for us forever, and we will always be in your debt. But as you know, for us to survive, we need supplies as well. And I see what you have here. And he picks up one bottle and he opens up a lid and smells it. Is of decent quality. Now, state your terms.
We can give you all this, as well as up our food deliveries. We need all our children immunized and as many adults as you can.
Okay. So, should this be a position check?
I would like to use a gift.
Which one?
Reputation. I can risk my reputation to obtain a large favor from an NPC or to close a deal. It'll come at the cost at 1 wound, which is removed after I repay the favor.
Okay, and that actually represents the stress of going through. And I think if you are to promise them food that maybe that with the food deliveries over the next say month, that hasn't actually yet maybe even been grown, or you don't even know if the food's there ready to be delivered. So
Promising what we don't have yet,
yep,
maybe?
that's gonna be you might not even have it. So
Ah, it's a good thing they like you, because otherwise I guess this wouldn't work.
Look, we can double the food.
and his eyes widen at this in anticipation and excitement, and he almost looks a little bit too eager, and then momentarily elapses back to the blank face that he had before.
You know we're not going to screw you over.
Okay. And he's got his hand to his chest. First, you bring us this lovely new world in which we live, and now you're so generous in helping us to even survive this new world. We are truly appreciative of your generous offer, dear Mayor. Here, and his companion drags a crate down. And it's a small crate, but it's filled with some vials and needles. Here is your medicine that you so rightly deserve. Of course, the symbiotic relationship that we both have in this world is important, and you, Mayor, are just as important, actually, probably more so. You are the most important person of the Oasis, and rightfully so. You should be the leader there.
Sybil is looking back at Val like, this guy is insane.
And Val thinks it, but he's trying not to give too much away since we're getting what we need.
Yeah. Oh, she's turning around. She's not making a face where they can see it. She's just like, what is anything here? Huh.
Perhaps at some point in the near future, you can bring your friends and we can join together and feast. And to some extent, we could organize future marriages, relationships. The new world needs to be built up with children, and we have eligible partners right here.
Speaking of children, we are, of course, in a great hurry to return to ours and ensure that they are safe. We are truly appreciative for your wonderful response to our trade, but I am afraid to say we probably must be going, mustn't we, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we told them we would be back by dawn.
Very well. I wish you all the best of health, and we look forward to dealing with you in the coming future.
Of course.
My friends, and of course, my special friend, the mayor. You should look after this one. Perhaps he might be worth considering as a, part relationship. Anyway, off. Leroy,
And Val
close the
will
door.
load the box, the crate, onto the boat.
Sybil is getting back in the boat as quick as possible.
He will say to Kurt, Nicole is going to hate you for this. And he will then say to Sybil, what is a part relationship?
I don't know, and I wasn't going to ask. And I don't think we should try and arrange any marriages between, well, anyone here, perhaps.
I am in agreement.
Hmm.
And Val will start the engine of the boat and start making their way back to the oasis.
Now,
I've put Nicole through much worse.
not to question you, oh almighty mayor, creator of the new realm of symbiotic. How are we going to provide double the food?
See, this is where I get to say that's not my department.
Oh,
But fear not, I get all the stress as well.
As the tightness in your chest increases.
well, he's talking about arranging marriages. I half think he wants to marry you.
You know, I've thought about that. He's quite the strange man.
He seems a little bit obsessed.
But it would be disastrous to cut them off, I hate to admit.
That it probably would. At least we got what we came for.
The crisis was averted. There was no more sickness. The children were immunized, and the baby and her mother and the husband eventually moved on to other pastures. For the next month, though, the Oasis had to keep up with double the food supply, much to the stress of Nicole and Taryn and the Tan family, who were constantly not very happy with Kurt, not at all, and William, well, tearing down the generator of the next month as well, was always cursing Kurt whenever he walked by, and there we have it. The first crisis, but certainly not the last, children. And that's going to be a story for another night. Okay, so you succeeded, um,
Mhm.
but only at a standard outcome. Now, there's failure, outcome with cost, standard outcome, and outcome with increment. And that actually matters because of how many sections fill up your counter increment at the end of the um, crisis. A failure would
Mhm.
result in 4 sections being filled out. An outcome with cost would be 3, standard outcome 2, and an outcome with increment only 1 section. So an outcome with increment, the community gains new members. So the husband and the wife and the child all moved in. Plus they survive, and surplus resources again, like, for example, medical equipment. Okay. Or you could have saved on the resources that you would have had to supply people. But given that Kurt had promised excess resources, you've essentially lost resources. Even though the husband and wife did live with the baby and the baby as well, should I say. And the secret was solved, but you did lose resources. Okay, so I'm setting it at a standard outcome. The outcome with
Okay.
cost would be you lost resources that either one person passed away, but no one else was affected. That the tuberculosis was cured, the secret was solved, and you've spent excessive resources. And a failure would be that the tuberculosis affected the whole settlement, that you would have had to expend either an excessive amount of resources to heal everyone, basically, or multiple people died.
So for a standard outcome, we fill in 2 sections on the event counter.
Yep. So when that event counter fills up, you get what is called the Breath of Blight. And the Breath of Blight determines an effect on the game region. So obviously, the better you do at a crisis,
the more we put that off.
yeah, the less that occurs. So some of the events that do
Okay.
occur are quite significant. Excuse me, are quite significant.
All right. So our outcome means we fill in that 2. Is there anything else that has occurred because of our outcome? What happened?
Okay, so you need to look at your descriptors. So when conditions in the community have changed significantly, players may rewrite one or more of the community descriptors and possibly replace the related gift with a more appropriate one. So do you think any of the descriptors have changed?
I know one of our descriptors relates to having a lot of food available.
Yep.
That, I suppose, may have changed at least temporarily because we're now giving a lot of it to the hospital.
Yep. So in the short term, your resources might be limited.
Under normal circumstances, we have excess resources.
We normally have.
But under current, we lack the supply.
We're experiencing a temporary shortage of food due to an agreement we made with the hospital in exchange for medical supplies?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So you guys also have to update your community journal, and that is when a crisis is resolved or not resolved. You add a descriptor that represents the effect or consequence of that crisis on the community. So, in the event of a standard outcome or an outcome with an increment, you would have an achievement, and if that was a failure or outcome with a cost, then the descriptor would be a setback. And an achievement always has a positive connotation, like we succeeded in, or we achieved, or we learned, or we are stronger because.
Okay. So we just need an achievement because we got the
Yep.
the standard outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I'd say it should be something to do with the fact that we immunize people against tuberculosis. Does that sound fair to
I
all
agree.
involved? Okay. SPG?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
see why not.
So something like we succeeded in immunizing our community against tuberculosis. We are at much less risk for it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yep.
All right, we'll add that. We'll add that to the community journal.
We solved cancer.
So that becomes part of the narrative of the community now. Okay.
Okay. All right, so that was our first time playing Dead Air Seasons, and we did successfully complete our first crisis, possibly to the surprise of us and maybe anyone listening, but hey, we did it. So, we also have some other Dead Air Seasons content we released. If you haven't watched that yet, we have a community creation video as well as a character creation video. We wanted to say thanks again to the World Anvil Publishing for letting us work on this with you, and thanks to everybody who's watched this far. We've got plenty of other videos to check out if you're interested, and we hope to see you again.